back, everybody, to the High Roller Organization Sports Betting Podcast. Today, what T and I are going to talk about is the bets to win each one of the conferences. We're going to start with that, give you our opinions on what we feel the best future bet is, maybe in the conference. Might pick some chalk along the way, but we'll also maybe give you an idea of who could sneak in and disrupt or some way where you can make money on somebody other than the chalk. We can move on to the Big 12 here. Coming up this next year in the Big 12, once again, it has a couple of the teams that just get so much hype all the time and don't perform at that high level. And I start off with Texas. They get a lot of hype. I just can never pull the trigger on a Texas. But on top, and you can give us the numbers on that, how are you looking at? I'm looking at Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma gets it done even though they lost Lincoln Riley, they lost Caleb Williams. All you hear about is what they lost. What they gained is a chip on their shoulder.
Dylan Gabriel is a nice quarterback too.
And they've got some people that can step in and play. So T, why don't you give us your thoughts on the Big 12?
So Oklahoma comes in as the betting favorite at plus 150.
Yep.
Only team with a 9.5 win total. Texas and Oklahoma State are both at a 9 win total. Texas at plus 180, so just slightly behind Oklahoma, and then Oklahoma State plus 425, and then Baylor plus 550. Those are the teams that realistically I think have a chance.
Yeah, I agree.
I would agree with you with Oklahoma to a certain extent. I think all you've heard about is who they've lost.
Yes.
Lincoln Riley, Williams, all the other guys in the transfer portal. Oklahoma's going to be just fine. Plus, I don't love the Big 12 this year.
I would agree with that. I think, what do you think? Oklahoma's maybe one of the top 15 teams in the country. I mean, the Big 12 comes in with maybe having one team in the top 15.
I've got Oklahoma at 8.
Yeah, okay. You got them a little higher than I got them. Anybody else in the Big 12 in your top 15?
Texas at 15.
Boy,
that's...
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're going to disagree. I would bet the Texas under. What is it, 9 wins? Yeah. Take the under. They get the 9. They may push, but Texas has to play Alabama. They got to play Oklahoma. They only played 12 games, and you got 2 losses there. So Texas going 9-1, and forgive me, I've got friends and family who absolutely love Texas, and no, sorry, they aren't there yet. Sarkisian is not there yet. That I know that quarterback that came in from Ohio State. They're talking him up big, and they got Arch Manning in the future, and they just signed a big lineman from Florida, and their future looks bright. It just isn't there yet. They just got too many guys that look like Tarzan and play like Jane. They absolutely kill me. If you can't tell, I got a little burr up my saddle because they've cost me money in the past. They ain't gonna cost me money in the future until they start proving to me they can win some of these big games. And when did they get Alabama? Like right out of the chute? Week 2? Oh my gosh. Yeah, take Alabama. That's going to get ugly. Take Alabama. That's going to be Nick Saban looking right at Arch Manning going, you should have chose Alabama because this is how it's going to look in the SEC.
Alabama kind of chose.
SEC. Well, Alabama chose. Yeah, exactly.
Took the number 2 guy there.
Exactly. So if you can't tell, I'm higher on Oklahoma State than I am on Texas. But what are your thoughts? Who could sneak up and maybe you find some value with some people?
I don't have my heart nearly as much involved as you do.
Yeah, that's
Texas, true. I think they'll be all right. Now, when I say they could have a good year, that doesn't mean that I think Texas is competing for a college football playoff spot. Yeah. I don't think any of these teams necessarily are going to be college football playoff teams. I think this year you've got Ohio State. I think Alabama gets in. Unlike last year where the ACC was down, I think the top of the ACC is going to be a lot better this year. I think either Clemson, NC State, depending on how that goes, I think they get in. And then you've got like a Georgia and then another SEC team that I think could get in. Yeah. And then you've got a Utah's potential.
Yeah.
USC, if they would end up beating Utah, I think USC, depending on how their year goes, My problem with Texas, though, getting back to the Big 12, is by playing Alabama early.
Yeah.
Alabama, I like it. I really like Alabama in that game.
Yep.
I think Nick Saban, where you brought up Arch Manning, I think it's more he's going to send a message that you're joining the SEC. You're no longer playing in the Big 12 anymore. Like,
Yeah.
it's a completely different level.
Yeah.
Welcome to the SEC. And just like Wisconsin did when Nebraska
Ooh.
joined the Big Ten, we were
Sorry,
actually
Husker
at,
fans.
we were at that game when Nebraska got 70 put on them,
Yeah.
and then they played Wisconsin again in the Big Ten title game, and
Yeah.
Wisconsin hung like 60 on them in that game.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
Found out who Big Red really was in that series.
Yeah,
so.
I think Oklahoma, they lose Caleb to USC.
Yeah.
They'll be just fine. I mean, Gabriel's in the right system. He can be all right. Little undersized.
Yeah.
But I mean, he can put up numbers like he did at UCF.
Yeah. I just for me, I just see the Big 12 as kind of a mosh of 3, 4, even 5 teams. I mean, depending on what Baylor can do, trying to pull together and climb out of that crab pot. But moving on to that college football playoff with those 4 teams, I agree completely with you in the fact that I see it Ohio State, Alabama, and
Gap.
Georgia.
Gap.
I see them all as undefeated, quite honestly. I think that all 3 are going to run the table. It will be a huge upset, ticker on the bottom, alert, if any one of those teams loses any game this year. And in fact, almost every game all 3 of those teams play, they're going to be double-digit favorites. I mean, it is really unique when I was looking through this going, when are these teams? I mean, I know they play good teams, but man, I see a big gap. Georgia may have the lowest ceiling in order to put those points up, but I believe in Georgia's defense, even though they lost an entire NFL team on the defensive side. I still believe in them. It's who's that 4th team? Is it Utah? I mean, you brought up USC. I'm not as high on them, but it could be. I mean, if they beat
they've
Utah
just got
early,
a lot of weapons in a Lincoln Riley system.
They'll bring the name. They'll definitely bring the name. I think all heck would break loose in the college football world if you had let's say Ohio State and Penn State, who I see Penn State could be 11-1, and just on the outside looking in, I know you don't believe in them like I do. You'd substitute Michigan there, but you'd say, okay, Michigan 11-1. Okay, and they are playing in the Big Ten title game. In Ohio State, I hate to say it, maybe they beat Wisconsin.
Maybe.
Sorry, Dodger fans.
But
yeah, I know.
they're beating
But
Wisconsin.
anyhow, you've
Graham
got
Mertz is not beaten Ohio State.
And faith in Graham Mertz. I got faith in you, buddy. You got a high ceiling. Go out there and play. Anyhow, that's my pep talk to you, Graham Mertz. Get it done. You and Spencer Rattler, I got faith in both you kids. Anyhow, getting back to it. If you've got that second Big Ten team from the East that's 11-1, who's to say you couldn't have 2 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams? Because let's say Clemson is, 9-3, 10-2.
Then NC State would
NC
would have
State
beaten them, and NC State
maybe
would get
NC
it.
State's 10-2, 9-3. There could be some parity there. So that being said,
That ain't happening.
I think you got 3 teams. It's who's that next one, and does a Clemson on one side of the country, need to be at least 11-1. Da'odula, Utah, or a Pac-12 champion in Utah or USC.
Depends on who it is.
And then we haven't talked about that independent team from Indiana, who I'm not a big fan of them either.
There's no reason they're gonna lose.
Exactly.
Early. They're gonna lose.
I think
late.
they're gonna lose.
They're not.
Yeah.
I don't see Notre Dame being in the picture.
But if indeed they were in the picture, just because once they get their butts kicked by Ohio State, they go on a little roll for them. do they enter in? I just don't think so. I think you're going to see the top two teams from the SEC again make the college football playoffs. I think, and I'm not afraid to put money on Alabama and Georgia to get there. I'm not afraid to put money on Ohio State to get there. It's just that fourth team. Who's going to sneak in? Right now, for me, I'll be honest, kind of like Utah.
Again, and I mentioned it earlier, it depends on who that Pac-12 team is. The TV deals would love if Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and USC are in the playoff.
Yeah.
You bring USC back into
Oh, yeah. Back in
relevancy,
college football royalty again. Yeah.
and they'll be good.
Yeah.
Talking about bringing up Notre Dame, since we didn't talk about them in any of the conferences because they're independent. They go to Ohio State week 1.
It's a loss.
They got to play Clemson, and they got to
Loss.
go to USC in the final week of the year.
That'll be a good game.
They're losing all 3.
Think it's a loss.
They're losing all 3.
Yeah. Yeah. So
They'll be in a nice bowl game.
Yeah.
New Year's Bowl potential.
Yeah, a nice consolation prize.
They're not playing for national title this year.
I agree. And all you Notre Dame fans, you can send that hate mail my way, because
I mean, I like Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
Year 1.
Yeah.
They did lose. They kept the majority of the guys through the transfer portal, but they did lose a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see them competing for a national championship this year.
Yeah. No, I agree. This year Notre Dame, I just don't see it.